So my name is Karen Schloss, and this series is what to do with a blank notebook. The first thing we'll talk about is the different types of notebooks that are available. Then I'll talk about the kinds of pens that are available. And then we'll talk about, boy, I'm saying a whole lot. Different kinds of materials, and then I'll share some resources. So the first kind, there are four basic kinds of journals that you can use. Planners, bullet journals, trackers, and organizers are one. Planners, you can plan the year, the month, the week, or the day. You can use them for event planning, such as for a wedding or a party. They actually have commercial ones that you can buy all ready to go. Habit trackers are something that I use just to see how often I'm doing a certain thing. I've seen people do mood planners, things like that, or mood trackers, lots of tracking things. Another thing you can use a planner for is goal planning, project planning, or tracking, like I said. Bullet journals are another whole different type of organizational thing. Bullet journals were developed by Ryder Carroll. I think it's probably been 6 or 8 years since he did that. And on this document, I have shared the URL for Ryder Carroll's bullet journals. Trackers are often put in bullet journals or planners. You might be tracking your health or your medical care. You might be tracking your expenses. And the last category in this one is organizers. You might use a notebook for a swatch book, whether you're swatching fabric or art materials or a tool inventory. There's a financial organizers that do budgeting, planning, and record locator. One thing that I use a lot is my reading journal. I have a TBR, to be read list. I also have a tab by year of what books I've finished for that year. So I know by the end of the year, I've read 120 books this last year. Wow. I set as my goal 75, so I was pretty pleased with that. I also have notes from other people who have said, oh, you have to read this book, it's so good. Sometimes it is, and sometimes yeah, no. Another organizer you might keep is a health record for health tracker or records. Weight loss, I did a weight loss one when I started Weight Watchers a couple of years ago, and I put records in it. Tracking, I did a whole section on recipes, and it was really kind of fun to do. And how many times I went to Zoom meetings for Weight Watchers. You might do an exercise journal with goals, inspiration, certain exercises. I did one of those when I did physical therapy last summer. You can have an organizer that's nothing but a list. To-do lists, TV shows, podcasts, restaurants. I have a whole notebook that's nothing but lists of stuff. Lists of famous people that remind me of other famous people, things like that. I've got lists of this is one of my favorite ones. I've got lists of names, right? Names that I would name a cat. Human names, I've got one that are clever names, and I've got one that are I just like them for no apparent reason. The cutest one I can think of is this woman in Kentucky who raises Abyssinians. She gives them food names. So you can imagine Twinkie, that sounds like a cat name, right? But my favorite was Pop-Tart, and call her Poppy for short. I thought that was really cute. Another book that I've actually seen a commercial book printed that way was for restaurant reviews. So you could write in your menu, what you ate at that restaurant, when you ate there, where it was, how to contact them again, how much it cost, what you thought of the food. Was it good? Was it awful? I did that with my husband back in 2003, maybe, and it was fun. Borders used to have a lot of those. I don't remember the brand name. And I also had one for books, but I filled it, so I had to go to disc bound. Food tracker, recipes, restaurant reviews, what you've been eating, what you've been making, and a blog. That's the last of the organizers. These are just examples. There are like a million more of everything. The second category is writing journals. So my grandmother kept a diary. It isn't like Dear Diary. That's more of a journal. A diary is actually a daily log of experiences, a documentation of the day's events. And people used to do that a lot back in the 1800s. My grandmother was born in 1900, and she kept a diary every day once she learned to write. So you could go back, and she kept them on a steno pad, if you remember what those were like. And she would write the temperature, the high, the low, whether it snowed or rained or whatever, and she would write down, you know, what they did that day. So that was kind of fascinating. So when you're writing a diary, you'll write what happened, who was involved, how did it happen, how did it make me feel, where did it happen, when did it happen. That's the sort of thing that you would do for a diary entry. A journal is a different thing. It's writing, and it may be a general or it may be on a specific topic. And some examples I have of topics are a gratitude journal. I made it a goal in 2016 to take a picture every day and write something that I was thankful for. And by the end of the year, the notebook had gone from being maybe an inch thick to maybe 4 inches thick. It doesn't close anymore. But I was pleased to find out how much in my life there was to be grateful for. Another popular type of journal is a faith journal, where you can record your prayers, devotional or scripture writing, talk about your spiritual journey. During the pandemic, I kept a quarantine journal. I call it my COVID-19 journal, but I only did it from the 1st of March through the end of August. And in the end, I don't have that to share with you because I donated it to the National Mississippi River Museum. They were looking for COVID-19 journals. And I was thinking about, you know, who really cares what I did or thought during the COVID-19 quarantine? But my daughter pointed out that that would have been fantastically interesting if we had that type of writing from, say, the bubonic plague back in the 1300s. It would have been interesting.
What made you stop writing it?
It was just a lot of work, and I had my band started playing again, so I just and I was into, one of the things that I did during quarantine was to learn how to paint watercolors. So I was more into that than into the writing. Food journal, again, a grocery list, water and food tracking, calories, nutrition, that sort of thing. A list journal. I love lists. I have a whole notebook of lists. I have lists of lists. I do a lot of that. Dream journal, a lot of people keep those. This is something that I really love. It's called a commonplace book. And when, probably 2017, I started writing down everything that I looked up on Wikipedia, which was like a dozen things a day. One day I did research into all these buildings that are in Dubuque that look like they used to be something. They did used to be something. This one used to be a school for young women on 17th Street. And it, I think, is like apartments now, but it was just this huge building. And I thought, that looks like it used to be a convent or a college or something. And sure enough, it was. So that was interesting. But they call it a commonplace book. It's just where you put down all the facts that you find out during the day, you know, like maybe a word a day or whatever. I had some of those in there. A happiness journal. I have a chronically positive attitude and I love color. So I made this book using all sorts of different scraps of paper, and then I put sayings either printed out or photographs or just little journaling bits that I made of positive thoughts. So when I'm having a bad day, I can go through it and it's like, well, this is really pretty uplifting. That's helpful for me. Gardening journal, I tried keeping one of those that lasted a week. I am not a gardener by nature, but if you were a gardener, you could put in your plans for your garden. My mother has my grandfather's garden journal, which I found very interesting. It laid out the plots for the garden and the orchard and everything. They had a farm in Western Iowa. It was very interesting to see somebody else's. This is something that I've done. I kept a journal from the time I was 14 until I was probably 20. And a lot of it was unsent letters that I wrote to myself, letters that I wrote to other people, saying the things that I would say to them if I had the nerve that I didn't. And that's kind of fun. And you can combine all of these. I mean, a journal could be all of these together and then it would be just a general journal, but you can keep them by year, not just by, topic. Affirmations and quotes. When I was in 9th grade, Mrs. Elliott had an essay written by a woman who kept a kind of a journal for her daughter who was newborn at the time. And she included photos and drawings and quotations and sayings, and then wrote about each of those. Why is this important? One of my favorite ones is life has no remote, get up and change it yourself. And that is the sort of thing that I would put in an affirmation or quote book. The one that I did for my children, I put in a commercial journal, a beautiful Laurel Birch one. It's not very big. And I wrote in 4 different colors of sparkly ink because I thought little girls would love this. And my kids are all like, if it isn't on the internet, we don't need it. Vision journal, if you've ever heard of a vision board, this is like a putting together where do you see yourself in 5 years, that sort of thing. And I've done that. Moving from one house to another, what am I going to do with this particular space? What do I want to put there? How do I want to arrange it? How many books am I going to allow myself in this little apartment? I limited myself to 100. Out of 2,000, 100 was really hard to choose. Nature journal. My husband used to keep a camping journal, places that he'd camped, how much it cost, how long we stayed there, what we did while we were there, what was especially good about it. And that ended up having, I wrote an article about our fall camping and it was printed in the front page of the Des Moines Register. So that's my claim to fame. Something I'd never heard of was a 6-word story. You make a 6-word story a day and that's all you have to write for your journal. I thought that was interesting. I don't think I could do it. A bucket list. There is actually a website called Bucket List. .org, and you can keep it on there. But my brother just retired at the end of December and he started a bucket list. And I guess he's had it going for a while, but now they're starting to actually do the things on the bucket list. That's pretty cool. The next category of types of journals are creative journals. That would be like an art journal, a smash book, a junk journal, a glue book, a collage book, a scrapbook, a sketchbook, an annotated photo album, lettering practice, or a memory book. We'll get into that when we talk about creative journals in week 4. And hybrid journals are journals that are a combination of writing journals, creative journals, and organizers, such as a travel journal, a self-awareness journal or a mental health journal, a positive energy journal. Wreck This Journal is a book series by Carrie Smith. They're pre-printed ideas in a soft-bound book, and you can, she has you do weird things like try out every pen that you own on this piece of paper, or write the same word over and over and fill this whole page. And if you go on Pinterest and look under Wreck This Journal, people do the most amazing things with theirs. They might make like a Disney theme and have all the office supplies that they use be Disney themed, something like that. Guided journals are journals that are pre-printed with information in them. I know I brought one. Oh, my future listography. This says, list films you'd like to see one day. List environmentally friendly habits you need to start.
That's a good one.
Yeah, this came from Target. I'll talk about where.
So did you have anything listed in there? Is it empty?
Oh no, these are all unused.
Oh.
I have a problem, I know this. I actually, and the funny thing is that my friend Kim had just posted that on Facebook yesterday, that she had a problem with journals. She had a lot of blank journals, hundreds. I don't know that I have more than 100, but I have a lot of empty.
Do you have filled journals as well?
Oh yes. Yeah, I do at least 1 or 2 a year, but I'm more into the planners right now. And somebody said to me, one of my crafting people said to me, your planner isn't just a planner, it's a journal. You're writing down what you're doing. And I said, well, not exactly. I mean, it's just it's to-do lists, but I also put in sayings and photographs, and yeah, it is kind of a memory book. At the end of the year, I can look back, and they start out really thin. They start out like really thin, and I suppose by the end of the year, it's probably a good 2 inches thick. I have to change the rings. These are small rings, or maybe medium, and then the large ones are the ones that I end up using in my real planner. These are mini. This.
You can take those out and put in bigger ones?
Oh yes, and I can show you that when we're done here, when we start talking about different kinds of notebooks, which is just about ready. The learning journal, the commonplace journal, commonplace book can also be a hybrid journal. Mine certainly is, because it started out with me doing writing, but it ended up with writing and print out maps and things. And I just love my learning journal, my commonplace book. The Documented Life project is a project you can participate in. You complete 1 lesson a week for an entire year, and it has, you know, it's nice that it's structured, and they tell you what to do, what to, like this week, you might write down every place you ever went to school and that sort of thing. Scrapbooks are a whole genre on their own. They really are a hybrid journal. You do a lot of photographs and decorative elements, but you also do a lot of journaling. And they actually make journaling cards, or journaling. You can do like a pocket scrapbook. I don't know if you've seen those. They have pockets that you can slide pieces into, and they're set. So it's easier in some ways than taking a piece of 12 by 12 paper and doing your thing on that and then sliding it into a protector. We'll get to that in week 5. So materials, let's talk about kinds of notebooks. I tried to get one of every kind that I'm going to discuss. I am cheap. So I pick up things when they're on clearance, a lot. So this beauty must have cost me like $1/4. It's just a spiral bound notebook. You can get them anywhere, right? A lot of my journals just come when they're on clearance, and I grab them because they're cute. So spiral bound notebook, you can use that for a lot of things. 3-ring binders, we all know what those are like. Composition notebook. If you went to college, you probably use these. They're just lined paper. They're soft covered. They're nice to put things in, and they can be very, very inexpensive too. If you go during the school, after school starts, they'll put all the spirals and things on clearance, and that might be a quarter or a dime to get. The composition notebooks are like $4 each, but if you get them on sale, they might be $1. I think that one cost me like $1 at Target. So let's see, hardbound or softbound journals. This is a hardbound journal. I just thought it was pretty. I think I got it. It's just a plain lined journal. I got that at Target, I think. I couldn't resist the colors. They also come softbound. This one is, yeah, this is just a softbound, same thing, just lined. I thought the cats were cute. That one came from Michael's. Let's see. There are 3 different kinds of journal books that are, they have inserts. This is like the cover itself, and then it has, I'm trying to see where it is at. They have elastic bands that you put through the leaves, and then you have a journal.
You just build it as you go.
You build it as you go. That's especially useful for art journals. This is called this is just a Michael's Recollections brand traveler's journal, but they also Midori Traveler's Journal is the Japanese one that like everybody uses, and they are really cool. And Carpe Diem does an art journal that looks a lot like this. You can buy the separate covers, and then the Carpe Diem inserts are just these little plain paper. Those are good for art journaling. Disc bound is like my favorite thing. Okay.
Excuse me.
This is a disc bound one from Create 365, Me and My Big Ideas Happy Planner brand. And this one happens to have dot grid paper in it, which we'll talk about in a second. But the nice thing about these are, and like I said, these are all new. None of these have been, I unwrapped some of them last night, did all of them. So these are nice because they come with tabs and paper, and that's kind of nice. And the other nice thing about them is you can change the discs for bigger discs. These are mini, these are medium. They come bigger. The bigger ones are like 1.5 inches.
So you can add more pages to that?
Yes, and taking them out or rearranging them, or rearranging, giving it a different cover. I do a lot of that. And when you do this for these, do that. If you tear it from the outside, you will tear the pages. So you pull right from the middle. And to put it back in, you just poke it back in. So that's a disc bound planner. There's a lot of different brands, but Happy Planner was the original disc-based planner. I think Martha Stewart has one. Erin O'Connor. There's a lot of them. They come in different sizes. They come everywhere from a little tiny one to a half sheet to, this is the classic size, and then they make a 8.5 by 11 one also.
And where would you purchase those typically?
Clearance at Michael's.
At Michael's, okay.
Clearance is my best friend. Okay, and there are also hand-bound journals. I do not have any of them. I have bought a couple for other people. They are, if you look on Etsy, they have journals that might be in a soft cover like this, or they might be in a stab bound is a kind of Japanese binding, and they're really pretty. They have very elaborate designs, and you can get those or piano hinge ones, a lot of hand bound types. Okay, so types of paper. I brought some very popular different types of journals that have different types of paper. This one is a spiral bound, again, the colors. This is just lined. The nice thing about this is that you could put more in it. If you start adding a lot of bulk, which I do, that's why I have to use the bigger discs in my disc bound planners, because I really load mine up with invitations and business cards, and everywhere I go, photographs. I just stuff it full of stuff. So that's a lined paper. Probably if you are going to use, if you were going to make if you are going to make a bullet journal, you will want to use, well, that's not going to come off easy, is it? You will want to use a dot grid. Oh, this is cool. I never noticed this before. I never actually opened this since I bought it. Scribbles That Matter is one brand for making a bullet journal. And so it has the key and an index. When you do a bullet journal, we'll talk about this more next time, but when you do a bullet, and then the paper is dot grid. The reason that it's dot grid is so that you can do elements like banners and things without having to measure everything. You can just draw your lines with a ruler or stencil, whatever. When you do a bullet journal, say this is the page that I choose. This is like page 16. So I start with page 16 and I'm making a list of the podcasts I'm listening to. Then I will go back to this and say, in the index, page 16 podcast list. So that's, oh, and it's got a little pen keeper too, to tuck your pen in. So that's, this is one very popular kind of bullet journal. Moleskin is an extremely expensive but common notebook that people use for journaling. This one happens to have lines in it. This takes inserts. I don't know if I can figure it out. This takes inserts, so when you fill up one, you can just get another. Moleskin's really super popular. This one's the same thing, only it's a sketchbook. It has completely blank pages for drawing and coloring. You can make a template to divide the page up, and I've seen them divided up into 4 sections so that you can have multiple pictures. This is another kind of popular bullet journal. It's the dot paper. Leuchtturm 1917, it's German, I think. Oh, yeah, German. Deutschland, that's Germany.
Yeah.
So this is another kind. So blank page, lined grid. You can get kinds with a grid, like graph paper. If you didn't have access to dot grid, then a grid paper would.
What is dot grid compared to grid paper?
Well, you know the little squares of grid paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is dot grid. It really fades into the background.
Okay, then you just see the, I don't know if the camera's gonna pick that up. But...
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
They're really
it's little
tiny.
dots.
Little dots, yeah.
That form squares.
Mm-hmm. But they're not.
Visual. It's visual.
It's visual, yeah.
It's an illusion.
The final kind is a pre-printed or guided journal, and I showed you before the list. But this is one that I got. I hit clearance, and the cool thing is it has a matching little pocket and a matching pen.
Cute.
I mean, that was fun. And it is called Enjoying Where I'm At. And it has at the top Are you doing something over and over again and hoping for a different outcome?
You know what that's a sign of.
Is there anything you really wanted to do but didn't have the courage to try? Write it below and then make a plan to go after what you want. So each page has a guide to what you should consider writing about on that page. If you're interested in journaling prompts, and we'll talk about that more next time too, there are lots and lots of options for journaling prompts, just a lot of choices. Okay, kinds of pens. So you want to get your paper out and try the pens. I brought I brought 14 different pens.
Well, I think you should try
Well,
if we can.
also my favorite thing that I do that I just love, this is my swatch book. And every time I show it to people, people get real excited because it's a lot of fun. So this I brought because I have a whole thing of nothing but pens. And so, like, these are Pilot pens. And I wrote with each one so you can see what it looks like, what it's called, so that I can go back and.
So do you go back and look in that book when you're trying to decide what to write with and pick out your pens that way?
I don't have to anymore. I would have at the beginning. I've given away tons of pens that I bought because I thought somebody recommended Inkjoy to me. Well, let me tell you, no. I think I bought a set of 24 and I got them home and tried them once. It's like, no, I can't write with this. They're too scratchy. I like a really juicy pen, which is why I like. For planning, I use. You have to think about what you're going to do with your planner. That's the thing. Think about what you want to use your planner for, and then you also will think about what you want to use to write. So this is a Flair felt tip pen. And I like it because it's a medium point, and I have trouble writing dark enough. I don't remember if this is a gel pen or just a ballpoint pen, but this is a Papermate. Profile. And you can see that the felt tip is a lot darker, a lot bolder. These were my favorite pen for 5 years. This is a Pentel Rsvp.
Why was it your favorite?
I liked the colors, and it's a gel pen, and it's a pretty smooth writer. Are you sure you don't want to try it?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm a pen loving freak.
My handwriting, I can't decipher anything, so I stopped.
We will talk about that. This is a Bic Intensity. They do come fine point. I didn't realize exactly how juicy this is. That is the Bic fine point intensity, or medium point intensity.
Yeah, that's almost the same or bigger than your Flair.
Yeah, the tip is the same as the Flair, but the writing is a lot bigger. Uniball Signo 207. Was probably all I carried around for 10 years. If you're writing in a planner, when I started, I used the Signo almost, this and bottle to pen almost exclusively. That's another kind of, bottle to pen is another kind of gel pen that I particularly love. They come in really nice colors. Pilot bottle to pen. And as you might have guessed, they're recycled drinking bottles.
Nice.
Which I love.
Good use.
Yep. Stabilo Bionic is a really smooth writing ballpoint. I can't really tell if it's gel or what kind of ink it is, but probably, let's see. The one that I love the most to write with, that I have in my journal at home, is a Papermate Profile. Ball. And it's just a super juicy, smooth writing ink, and I really love it. So that's a Pentel. I think I have most of these written down in the paperwork. This is a Pentel Rsvp, which I always think is the one that I want, but it isn't. It's the Papermate. And I have two different kinds of Rsvp. This is the BK91. And this is the Rsvp RT. They look pretty similar, but they're different. They're a different pen.
They sound different on paper.
Yeah, I think the BK91 maybe writes a little smoother. The classic ballpoint pen that I just prefer for no real reason, if you're going to write with a, you'll see why, I think. If you're going to write with a ballpoint, I really like the Bic Crystal. They come in bright colors and it's a pretty thick line. This is a Pilot Precise V5 RT, and it's a super thin metal with a little tiny nib, and it writes really fine. Pilot Precise V5 RT. So if you're writing in a planner and you need smaller writing, that's what you would use. This one, it happens to be a Sakura Jelly Roll, which was the first kind of gel pen that was ever made. And they're made in Japan. Unfortunately, the only one I could find when I was looking tonight is this glaze, and it's embossed. It raises up. And the last one, if you are going to do a bullet journal, there are a couple different ones that people recommend for bullet journals, but this is probably the most common one. There's a couple things about it that make it special. One is it's triangle shaped, so it doesn't run away on the table. Another, they come in a couple different thicknesses. It's Stedler that makes it. Tri Plus, and this is a fine liner. And if you're going to do a bullet journal, that's the one that most people are going to recommend. So you can see that they have different thicknesses of ink. There are different inks for different purposes. If you're doing a lot of handwriting, which when I'm doing journaling, I do some journaling on the computer, mostly on Facebook. I have a blog that I might do on the computer if I'm going to be writing volume. But if I'm just writing, you know, a list of TV shows that I'm watching right now, I will probably use this profile, this Papermate profile, because I just like the way it feels. That's this one. But when I do my planner, I do that. When I'm doing the bullet journal, I'm using the Tri-Plus fine liners. So that's a little bit about pens. Okay, so this is the thing I was thinking as I was getting ready to leave. Do you need to have good penmanship to make a journal? You do not. I have a friend who writes so perfectly that you would think she was writing, her handwriting was, she was writing for a living, right? It's like a font, it's beautiful. In fact, I know a couple other people that do the same thing. And the thing about that is, when your kids look back at your journals and read them, they're not going to be thinking mom's handwriting was less than perfect. They're just going to love it because it's yours. This is what my friend said. When I said, well, could you fill out this book for me, for this scrapbook that I was working on? Could you do this for me because your handwriting is so much better? She said, your kids aren't going to care about that. Your kids are going to care that it was you. So I've made cookbooks before. That's what I use 3-ring binders for, that sort of thing. I have my writing journal, my writing, published writing. I usually type it up and then put it into a 3-ring binder because I don't like my handwriting. But my friend was right. My kids care more to see my things written in my handwriting. My grandmother's handwriting was abysmal, and yet the recipes that I have written in her own hand, I appreciate more. So we talked about kinds of notebooks, we talked about kinds of paper, and we talked about kinds of pens. So what you need to think about is what you plan to use your notebook for. Are you going to use it for a bullet journal? Are you going to use it for a creative journal? What plan do you have for it? And when it comes to writing journals, do you need to be a good writer in order to make a writing journal? You do not, especially if you're doing something like a diary where you're just keeping, sorry, my phone's going to be stupid here.
That was mine.
No, it's mine. It's a reminder. It's been 2 hours. Anyway, so you don't need to be a good writer. It's more fun if writing it comes easy to you. But if you start doing it, you know, I have this Mark Twain quote, the secret to getting ahead is getting started. And it doesn't matter, you can start anytime. It doesn't matter if it's March and you just bought a new planner. So it's March and you bought a new planner, move forward from there. The first planner I bought in July or August. And I just moved forward from there, and it wasn't, it took me a good couple of years to learn how to make a layout and make it look pretty. But I've been keeping a calendar of some kind or another since I was maybe 14, because I was involved in so many activities. And for a long time, I just kept a desk blotter calendar. And then I kept a calendar on the wall. In college, I had a academic planner, those little black ugly ones that used to get for free from the University of Iowa. Yeah, with all your important dates, like last date to drop this class. So you need to decide what you want to use your notebook for, and then go through all the choices there are. I have listed on this piece of paper several different suggestions for what to do with your empty notebooks. There's 15 creative uses for your empty notebooks, 30 fun and effective ways to use a blank notebook. What is the difference between a diary, a planner, and a journal? 50 plus ideas for your empty notebooks and blank journals. Empty notebook ideas, 40 things to do with a blank journal, and 110 things to do with an empty journal. Read if you have a pile of empty notebooks. 20 types of journals to keep. So where do I buy notebooks and pens? Locally, the places that I buy journals and pens are Target, Michael's, and Walmart. River Lights downtown Dubuque has really nice, fancy journals. There's one, I think it's called Write in the Rain, W-R-I-T-E, in the rain, I think. And they are waterproof journals with waterproof pens. And you can be standing out in the pouring rain and write, and the ink won't run. So I use that for a field journal. I really like that. They also have those at Blaine's Farm and Fleet. River Lights has some different types of journals and some different types of pens. I had got one at Barnes and Noble that's completely flat, so you can put it inside your notebook. It has a sticky that you can stick it down, and then you pull it out with a little case and write with it. I can't bear to use it, but I like it. I got one at River Lights that has a flip top, and it has a cat on it with yarn, and I really like that one. Yes, I have a notebook problem, and I also have a pen problem. I have hundreds, which is why I have my swatch book, which we can talk about making a swatch book when we talk about organizers. But this one I just have, for example, I have a full set of Faber-Castell Pitt brushes. So the reason that I have this is some things you buy by the each. Copics you buy by the each. They're $8 per Copic, and I don't want to buy a duplicate. So I write down which one it is. Then I know I won't buy a duplicate. Let me take that with you. Jet pens and Amazon are good places if you're going to buy like whole sets of pens. Most of these, I'll show you. Here, for example, Flair comes in 32 colors, but you can't buy a full set. So I think this is 3 separate sets. I had to buy 3 separate sets to get all 32. So that's why I have it that way. Let's see. If you are going to be journaling, make sure to check Pinterest or Google journaling prompts, where they have lists and lists of journaling prompts for all types of journals, so that you don't have to come up with things all on your own. You can go through and answer some of the questions. There's one that I've been doing with my mother. I think it's journaling jar gift. And you're supposed to write them on strips of paper and hand them to the person, and along with a notebook and a pen. But my mom's 90, she'll be 97 soon, and she does not write anymore. So she talks to me, and I ask her these questions. And so it's really been interesting learning about my mom. That's how I found out about my grandfather's gardening journal. That was cool. Let's see. Examples, there are millions of examples on Pinterest or Google. I also like Instagram for planner and bullet journal spreads, layouts, elements, different things that you might do with those. I included a link to Write with these cool notebooks, which showcases some fancier notebooks to choose. My best advice to you for any of these is go out and live your life. That way you'll have something to write about in your journal. When I started with Smashbooks, which are kind of a creative journal where you glue in all little bits of junk in your life, I didn't realize you can't just sit at home and expect to have a full, rich journal. You have to go out and do things so you have something to write about. Isn't that what they always tell writers? If you want to write, you have to go out and experience things. So the rest of the sheet is just descriptions of each week and what we will be, or each session each month. So week 1 was an overview of what to do with a blank notebook. So you need to go home now and decide what to do with your notebook and which supplies you will need. Doesn't have to be expensive. You can start with a 25-cent clearance notebook from Walmart and a cheap stick pen. What are those ones that everybody in the office uses? Are they Bic?
I think they're big.
Bic stick. Yeah. And I like those. I used those for a lot of years. I could go through boxes of those because they don't last as long as you would expect. I think they expect people to lose them. The second week, next session, we'll do planners, bullet journals, trackers, and organizers. And that will help you to make a bullet journal page using pens, dot, grid, paper, and stencil templates. I'll help you to make a tracker page, whatever habit you want to track. For me, it's how often do I wash the cat's dishes?
You wash your cat's dishes?
I have to wash them. If I don't wash them regularly, then we have tummy trouble. So I just need to make sure that I do it every week. Charging my Fitbit is another thing I have to do every week. There are things that I track that I do every week. Third thing that will be a goal planning sheet for 2022. And I don't think it matters that we're starting in February. The important thing is that we're starting, right? Week 3 is going to be writing journals. So we'll make a list journal page like on this future listography and a gratitude journal page. You know, at Thanksgiving, we go around and we say, I'm grateful for whatever, right? Or we write it down and then make somebody else read it. That's why I started the gratitude journal. And there's a saying, it's not happy people that are grateful, it's grateful people that are happy. And I really found that to be true when I did my gratitude journal. Creative journals in week 4, we'll make a glue book page, a scrapbook page, or a collage page. I'll bring stuff and you can put together whatever page you want.
Or glue books.
A glue book?
Yeah.
Anything you can glue into a book.
Okay.
Photographs, sayings, stickers. I didn't bring it tonight. I will bring examples of most of these, but most of the ones that I talked about earlier, I will bring examples for you to look at. And week 5 is hybrid journals, which is like you can make a travel journal page and complete a guided journal page. So like one of these. It's nice to have the prompts already written in there, but sometimes they ask questions that I don't really have that much to say about. Sometimes they write a question that's so complicated it takes me 20 pages. So these are not the best choice for me personally, but if I needed some help with discipline, that would be the way I would go. So that's everything I have for you. Do you have questions?
I kind of asked them during. So this is the only one that we'll be recording and posting.
Okay.
Then after this, it'll all be more hands-on. So we will post these pages and the links for everybody. And hopefully we'll get more people in person coming. And people can come to one or all of them, whichever interests them the most. So we'll hopefully.
And each time there will be an instruction page and things that they can do.
Okay.